My wife is a lazy one, doesn't do chores or clean. This was said by my husband at a gathering with all his relatives. When mother-in-law Julianne praised me, my husband immediately responded with a laugh. In disbelief, I looked at my husband. He still had a forced smile. Julianne and the other relatives all frowned and started whispering. The room quickly became uncomfortably tense. Actually, I couldn't hold back and spoke up. Anger was making my shoulders shake. My husband always looked down on me, citing his education and age. But to be spoken of badly in front of relatives? I have my pride too. Watch me, husband. My name is Hannah. I turned 30 this June. I met my husband John 3 years ago. He's younger than me and always insisted on splitting the bill on dates. Hannah's been working longer. She should take care of me as the senior in life, he'd say casually. I had no words to respond. I was too astounded to respond. I debated continuing the relationship with such a person, but in the end, my feelings for him won. I accepted his proposal a year ago, and here we are now. But age wasn't the only thing my husband bragged about. Over dinner one night, he said proudly, "When I was a teenager, I was scouted for show business." "You do have a handsome face," I admitted. He was blessed with good looks, tall and well-featured, but he never managed to make it in show business. He often flaunted his looks and youth, alienating those around him. Yet, he never thought it was a problem. "Everyone's just jealous of me. That's why it didn't work out," he claimed. I always just responded with, "Sure," said. It was clear to me that his attitude was problematic, but pointing it out would only lead to childish sulking and more trouble. There's another thing he's smug about. "I graduated from a much better university than Hannah. All my family went to that college." That's impressive. His alma mater was indeed prestigious. Anyone would praise his intellect upon hearing the name. "My cousin is a doctor and his wife a lawyer. A perfect match," he'd say. Yes, they are. His implication was clear, and it made me sigh in exasperation. But he continued without caring about my reaction. "Where did you graduate from again? Some third-rate college and working at a dull company? And you dare to call yourself my wife." "Why did you marry me then?" I asked, frowning. I had thought he loved me, but the reality was different. "I was in a hurry." "Huh?" "My family was pressuring me to marry. Maybe I made a mistake." He said this while stabbing a cherry tomato with his fork and tossing it into his mouth. "So marrying me was a mistake?" I asked, my voice trembling. He glanced at me coldly and nodded. "Yeah, if I had more time, I would have married someone better. You don't even have a better degree, and you're already 30. What's there to praise about you?" That's awful. I stood up from the chair, appetite gone. I took my dishes to the kitchen. His voice followed me. "Make sure you clean up my dishes too. That's a wife's job." I bit my lip in frustration. This was a joke. I was the one who made the wrong choice in marriage. He never loved me. He just married me for convenience, and is now enjoying looking down on me. How terrible. I was close to tears. Sitting on the edge of the bed, head down, he entered the bedroom. "About the day after tomorrow." "What?" My voice was cold, but I held back the tears. Crying would only make me more miserable. He looked at me silently for a while, then asked, "Hannah, are you mad?" "Why would you think that?" "Are you jealous of me? I guess that's inevitable, but I really need you to listen to me." He shrugged his shoulders, clearly not thinking he was in the wrong. "Anyway, there's a family gathering the day after tomorrow. I expect you, as my wife, to behave in a way that won't embarrass me." "I work at a third-rate company. I don't have money or fancy clothes," I retorted with sarcasm. He coughed uncomfortably. "You could rent a dress. Can't you think of that?" "Are you saying you won't buy it for me?" "Why should I?" He backed away, looking like a victim. Is that all you wanted to say?" asked. "If there's nothing else, leave me alone. I'm going to sleep." "I'll sleep too. Yeah, let's call it a night." He decided on his own and crawled into bed. "But eventually, we need to have kids." "You don't want children with me." "It's the parents. They're nagging." His words were selfish, devoid of any love for me. I realized even before our marriage, he never cared for me. When I wore uncomfortable high heels for a date, "You walk funny in those," he said with a mocking smile. "Oh, I might have forgotten my wallet." A few times he said that, making me pay the entire bill. Still, I believed in him. No, that's not right. I believed in my intuition, convinced that he was the only one, desperately trying not to be dumped. Maybe he appreciated my desperation and chose me as his wife, a convenient woman who would do as he says. His family home was grand and somewhat old-fashioned. Inside the large room, many relatives gathered. "Mom, I'm home." "Oh, John, welcome back. Haven't seen you, Hannah, since the wedding." "Yes, it's been a while," I nodded. Then he quickly said, I'd love to come more often, but she's too shy. Oh, don't be so formal. You're part of the family, Julianne said, smiling. But in her smile, there was a hint of the same mocking tone as her son. I never refused to go to his family's house. In fact, it was the opposite. He always made excuses to keep distance from his family, using me as a convenient excuse. Hannah, could you help with the cooking? I can't manage alone. Oh, no, Mom. He exaggeratedly shook his head. Also, I guess he's trying to say something bad about me. I had an idea of what he might say, but his words were more than I expected. She can't cook. What? I was genuinely surprised. I was indeed a company employee, but I never neglected housework. I always made breakfast and dinner for him. Yet he had the audacity to say such things? As I stood there dumbfounded, Julianne tried to smooth things over. But you do other chores, right? Balancing work and house chores is impressive. That's not... Right, Mom, she's not impressive at all, he said, looking like he was the unfortunate one. She's a sloppy wife who doesn't do housework or cleaning. What? Really? Julianne frowned. Relatives who overheard started gossiping. I looked at my husband, unbelieving. He continued, a pathetic smile on his face. It didn't seem like an act, as if he truly believed I was a useless wife. I need to say, I was trembling with anger. I had reached my limit. I glanced at him. No sign of remorse on his face. He seemed intent on playing the victim. Hannah, is what my son's saying true? Lloyd, entertaining guests in the back, approached. I let out a breath. With it, my words followed. What? Who are you talking about? You're always at the company housing. What? The in-laws looked shocked. An awkward silence filled the air. Hannah, what are you saying? He opened his mouth in panic. She's trying to belittle me. That's why she's lying. It's not a lie. My voice was calm, in contrast to his. My husband is unemployed. He got kicked out of his first job after graduation for mocking his boss's education. He hopped from one job to another, never lasting long. Hannah! His voice was almost a scream. But I didn't stop talking. Everything was what I had heard from my husband in the past. Even then, my husband had a victim's face. Back then, I was on his side, feeling sympathetic. But now, it's different. My company isn't much, a third-rate one, but we have company housing. My husband spends all day there, only going out for an evening walk, otherwise gaming all day. What do you mean, John? That company's the problem, he muttered lowly, voice tinged with frustration. But the in-laws' eyes were unanimously filled with disdain. Unaware, he continued. They don't appreciate me. That company doesn't deserve me. So you're being supported by a woman who's inferior in every way, education included? As I said this, he retorted vehemently. You should be grateful. You have no talent or anything. And what do you have to be proud of? Lloyd exclaimed sharply. The husband shrank back in fear. But Dad, listening to you, what are you? Complaining about Hannah and yet you're unemployed? Such a disgrace for someone in this family. I'll find a suitable job soon, he insisted, almost crying. Of course, such naive thinking was unacceptable. What do you think your age is? Suitable job? People your age have long secured such positions. Even Mom, he finally broke down crying. It's terrible. Everyone's ganging up on me. It's all true, isn't it? I said, exasperated. You avoid coming home because you know you'd be scolded like this, and then blame me for it. Your job is to make me look good. The last thing I wanted to hear. He didn't love me. The fact was now clear. But maybe, just for this time, it was okay. I didn't have to hold back anymore. You wanted grandchildren, right? What's this all of a sudden? Julianne looked perplexed. No wonder. It was a bit abrupt in this context, but for me, it was a natural topic. I had been debating whether to discuss it for a long time. Don't worry. John has 3 mistresses. One of them will surely give you a grandchild. What did you say? Julianne held her head. John, not only are you jobless, but what have you been doing elsewhere? It's because she lacks the charm of a woman. Place! Julianne scolded him. Already crying, my husband now began to wail louder. They're all younger and more attractive than you, but they're economically incapable, all pitiful. The pitiful one is you. I thought I'd confront him with reality. I knew it all along. Your excuses about going for walks or visiting friends, because... I turned back and said, Please come in, Mia. Yes. Responding and entering the room was a beautiful blonde, just as my husband said, young and attractive. And until recently, she believed in my husband. John, I was just a game to you. No, I like you much more than my wife, but you don't have the ability to make a living. Being a novelist is uncertain. Having a concrete dream is much more respectable than you. I raised my voice. My husband looked around fearfully, seeking help, but no one reached out to him. Everyone looked at him with contempt. Hannah, what have you done? Now my reputation is ruined. Stop blaming everything on me, I spat back at him, his resentful eyes on me. Mia was planning to marry you and even started part-time work in addition to her writing. Mia, is that true? His expression brightened. Mia crossed her arms, rejecting him. But it was all for nothing. That's not pointless. If you're willing, I'll leave Hannah. To think you'd easily abandon your wife like that? We're done, Mia argued back. My husband hurriedly tried to follow her. But then Lloyd's voice was thrown at his back. Pathetic, John. Dad, like I said earlier, Hannah is a terrible wife who can't do any housework. I've been enduring it. I was speechless. My husband seemed intent on clinging to his lies until the end. At that moment, someone entered the room, replacing Mia. Stop belittling my daughter. Hannah's mom? My husband looked surprised. I wasn't. After all, I had called Mom here. I had been waiting for this day. I told Mia the truth to get her cooperation. It was hard to tell Mom everything, but it was necessary. My daughter has always been kind, helping with housework since she was young. It's impossible she can't do it. Is that so? Julianne's face went pale. Mom, you've always lied to cover up when things get tough. I'm your mother. I could tell it was a lie, but to think it hasn't changed even now? Julianne apologized to me and Mom. Mom, I'm sorry for what my son has done. No, Mom looked at me troubled. I met my husband's gaze and said, So you're not going to apologize? Of course not. I've been humiliated in front of the whole family. That's right. Lloyd nodded gravely. You're a disgrace to our clan, John. From today, you're no longer a part of this family. Go chase your dreams wherever. Dad, what are you saying? You're joking, right? The only joke here is your existence. Lloyd rebuked my husband. He trembled and collapsed on the spot. How am I supposed to live now? I hate to say this while you're down, but... I thrust the prepared divorce papers in front of him. Sign this, please. Hannah, even you're abandoning me? You abandoned me first. I left those words behind and exited with Mom. Wait! Footsteps chased me as I stepped into the corridor. My husband grabbed my arm. Please, don't abandon me. Why don't you ask your mistresses? Though they all know now that you're married and have been deceived. Naturally, they were angry. Mia was their representative. No one would believe him anymore. Hannah, please forgive me. It's impossible. I shook off his hand. I've been preparing for this day. I thought I wouldn't be able to protect myself otherwise. Protect yourself? Yes. I looked up at my husband with a stern expression. If I hadn't protected myself, I'd be humiliated by you now. That's, To my husband's faltering words, I said, marrying you was a mistake. Hannah. My husband started crying like a scolded child. I walked away, never looking back. My husband was reluctant to agree to the divorce. Calls came daily to my mobile phone. I didn't answer. I knew what he wanted without having to talk. Please don't divorce me. Cheer up. I answered the phone once, reluctantly, to hear such whining. Obviously, he didn't miss me, just clung to my financial stability. I'm just clinging to my financial ability. This is so obvious that no matter what is said or complained about, I can only feel annoyed. Mia called me. Mia? He sounded momentarily hopeful. But my words dashed to sweet delusions. She's moving, starting over in a new town. What about me? She didn't mention you. Seems like she's completely over you. No way. His voice froze. I thought it was for the best. Mia is still young, and she's also beautiful. Beautiful with a dream of being a novelist. It would be a pity if she ruined her life associating with someone like him. The other mistresses seem to have cut him off too. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so desperately relying on me. You're all I have left, Hannah. Why? I feigned surprise. Why do you think I would help you? Because you love me, right? Even now, my husband was pushing his perceived attractiveness. I couldn't help but laugh. I did like you indeed. Then? But that's in the past, I declared firmly. Voicing it out loud helped me reaffirm my feelings. I don't love him anymore, not even a bit. The fact that I ever loved such a person feels bitterly regrettable. Goodbye then. Wait, Hannah! His voice was filled with anguish. I mercilessly ended the call. A few days later, the divorce papers with my husband's signature arrived. I looked at them and let out a sigh of relief. Hannah, long time no see. Mia stood at the door, bowing her head. I smiled and invited her in. How's the novel going? Thanks to you, I managed to meet the deadline. That's great. I offered her coffee, relieved. It was a strange connection, but Mia and I had started keeping in touch since then. We both fell for the same man and suffered similarly. Your advice really helped me. Don't take an amateur's opinion too seriously. No. Mia looked directly at me. You were the first person to seriously listen to my problems, Hannah. Really? Yes, that's why I'm grateful. Mia smiled gently. Even as a woman, I felt nervous being smiled at by such a beauty. But Mia seemed unaware of her effect. Over coffee, she continued. Hannah, what about your next romance? No way. I was clear. I've had enough of men for a while. What about you, Mia? Well, Mia blushed and looked down. I could guess. You have someone you like? People always say I fall in love easily. Maybe they're right. Mia looked embarrassed, but I found it endearing. Why not? Go for the next love. You think so? Yes, I guarantee it. You deserve to meet a wonderful man and be happy. Thank you, Hannah. Mia finally looked up, blushing more attractively than before. After Mia left, I looked around my room. It's a company housing provided by my workplace where I still live. My husband? No, ex-husband. What became of him? It's unclear. Seems he was disowned by his own family, and he never holds a job long. But that's a problem he brought upon himself. Dependent on me, belittling me, trying to ruin my life. He no longer exists in my life. Ah, nice weather. I stretched widely near the window, feeling light and refreshed as if I were a cat. I was free.